Why do people act? While never directly addressed or debated within the series, ActDodge has answered this question, and in doing so, built up a cast of incredibly well-realized and humanized characters. Because the answer isn't simple, it isn't uniform, and above all, it's connected to a natural human need for expression and self-discovery. And it's something that's been present even before Chapter 1 was in serialization. Don't worry, I'll explain. Many of the themes, and even some of the characters currently present in ActDodge, existed in a one-shot written and illustrated by the same people, Tatsuya Matsuki and Shiro Usazaki, respectively. And for anyone that doesn't know, a one-shot is just what it sounds like. A one-chapter, standalone story that'll run in a magazine like Shonen Jump. But the incredibly wordy Welcome to Asagaya Art High School film section takes a different approach to what I see as the same idea of self-truth and actualization, looking at things more from the mind of a creator rather than actor as we see in ActDodge. And given our current media climate, the fact that it's easier than ever for anyone who wants to be a content creator to be one in any medium, you might think that premise would be more palatable to a general audience. And there's definitely some truth to that, because I definitely felt the urge to pick up a camera and just go film something, anything, after reading it, as someone who's kind of always had that itch with filmmaking. But as to why the switch from creator to actor was made for the series, I'd say it's because acting is something that's better for conveying this theme of connecting to your true self, because it's even more relatable than the basic nature of creativity. Now, obviously I'm not suggesting everyone has experience in the theatrical arts. The key to understanding this isn't that one play in second grade that the whole class had to participate in. Rather, I call to mind one of the few Shakespeare monologues that you're likely familiar with from As You Like It. All the world's a stage, all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and entrances, and one person in their time plays many parts. The monologue goes on to talk about those parts as stages of one's life and how we act differently in each as we grow. But I, and I'm sure many people, have come to apply this idea in a much more malleable sense. Our roles in this play of our lives changing not only based on how close we are to the beginning or end of it, but also the set dressing and the cast we share the scene with. Basically, what I'm saying is that we as people act differently not only based on the stage of life that we're in, but also depending on who we're with and where we are. It's only natural. You talk differently with your best friends than you do a complete stranger. With your parents than someone else's parents, or maybe another figure of authority. When you're at home, out to dinner, at your job, or school. While not always extreme shifts, all of us are familiar with putting on different performances for different audiences. That's why method acting can be so appealing. The desire to come across as genuine is something that, ideally, benefits both parties, whether we're talking about real life or the arts. The idea being that those feelings will reach them and they'll be drawn in even more by the performance despite the role itself being fictional. So then when Yonagi connects to her emotions and experiences in order to play a certain role, you understand why it can be so powerful. It's acting for yourself first, in a way that will hopefully captivate your audience through some level of empathy. But here's where the meta element comes in. Who could have suspected that, in trying to evoke this from spectators in-universe, the manga would pull double duty and work just as well on the audience outside the story?
Are you crying? Can you even read Japanese?
Get out! Probably most people. But yes, as Yonagi discovers or rediscovers more sides of herself to portray in her roles, it's only natural that she begins to feel more human and we begin to feel more for her. Going from someone who legitimately needs to remember the feeling of smiling in Chapter 1, to crying genuine tears of joy by Chapter 22, to maturing as both an actor and person by the end of Night on the Galactic Railroad in Chapter 54. Every step of her journey has seen Yonagi exploring more of her psyche, growing as both an actor and character as she tries to connect to more of her true self. We see this with many of the other actors in the series as well. Araya, Akira, and Ogami so far have all had aspects of themselves explored and fleshed out through their performances. Desire, regret, grief, and pride all get their spotlight, likewise humanizing each of them. Not to say that they're all method actors, because Ogami and Akira definitely aren't, but there is certainly that same sense of connecting with the emotions they express on stage or screen, and still evoking that same feeling of authenticity. This is true for so many characters in the story. Except one. Enter the Angel of Stars, Chiyoko Momoshiro, who, at least at the start of the series, is the antithesis to the philosophy behind method acting. To her, acting should be entirely about the audience, not the performer. A good actor should be able to give the viewer the appropriate emotion, the desired experience, even if it comes about from an entirely artificial presentation. And there is something interestingly selfless about that. ActDodge certainly presents both Chiyoko and Yonagi's approach to acting as valid, and there being advantages and disadvantages to each. Method acting can certainly be viewed as selfish because you're taking the audience out of the equation because you're entirely caught up in your own performance. We see early on that this can motivate fellow actors to improve, but acting is often a collaborative medium. There is a risk that your co-stars will get caught up in the chaos of your own making and you won't even realize it. At the same time, you are trusting that your feelings will reach the audience and evoke the appropriate response. Chiyoko's advantage, on the other hand, is that through her approach, she has a constant awareness of what the audience wants and is able to deliver that at the cost of no personal connection to her craft. That's how she's able to steal a scene. She knows how to redirect the momentum to herself or straight up nullify it, rather than catalyze and distribute it to her co-stars like Yonagi does. And the most interesting thing about her character, to me, is that this isn't limited to when she's on set. It ties back into that all the world's a stage idea. Like Yonagi remembering feelings for everyday life, Chiyoko, at least through the early parts of the story, uses her angel persona to give the people she interacts with what they want to see from her. Most blatantly, we see this when she meets the other people cast in Death Island, putting on the face of someone who's eagerly researched all of her co-stars and knows everything they've done. The director even remarks, "Here we go, the character that loves talking about acting." That is then reinforced by him remarking that she's genuinely interested in Yonagi, the aforementioned enthusiasm just being to ensure the production could run smoothly from the first take. Something we see Chiyoko is incredibly committed to throughout this first arc. So this mask of hers, the fact that it seems like she's always performing, is why I think she's become the face of a generation of actors. And it's also why Yonagi cries when she glimpses the other side of that mask. It's a bit open to interpretation, but I believe she sees nothing beneath that face Chiyoko always puts on, because she so rarely shows her true self to the world or others. Like she lacks an identity beyond that mask. Which gets at why these two are such perfect foils for one another, but I'm gonna hold off on delving into their rivalry. That'll most likely be a video all on its own after this current arc in the manga ends. Anyway, it's not that acting can't be effective from Chiyoko's approach, certainly her success shows that it can, but that's not why people fall in love with acting. And understand that it is basically outright stated she is not yet in love with the craft. People act to connect to a more personal truth about themselves, to remember and grow and express. And it's that connection that can ultimately resonate stronger than anything in the world of arts, regardless of medium. It's why we create. So for someone like Chiyoko, who up until now in the story has only ever acted for the sake of others, you can understand her mask and why she only sees acting as a job. It's taken a lot of hard work to craft this persona that serves everyone but her. And so when it's discussed how even a star as bright as her will burn out as the audience grows acclimatized to her angelic charm, the turn she takes to push past this perceived wall not only makes sense, not only is something you can sympathize with, but comes about thanks to the one person who has challenged her ever since they set foot in the same room, Yonagi. Not gonna lie, I kinda just got goosebumps saying that. I think that's like the first time this has ever happened while recording. Shows just how much I love this series. Their rivalry really is something else because the root of it isn't hate from either side. At its core, there is admiration but also jealousy for what the other can do. That is ultimately what motivates each of them to try to outdo the other. Again, that video at another time. But the more I write, the more I think I understand why I empathize with Chiyoko. Being a creative mind in this generation of content creators, there's always talk on YouTube about making the stuff you want to make rather than something you're on, thinking it's what your audience or the algorithm wants. And you can absolutely achieve success going that route, but how often do we see burnout and creators just feeling hollow as a result? I think a lot of content creators have been at some point, or are Chiyoko, or at least know what it's like for your heart to really not be in a project. We want to feel that connection and hope it resonates with our audience through our passion. We want to be Yonagi. Like method acting though, it requires a lot of trust in the people that watch us. The same really goes for life. What good is projecting false feelings? At times, sure, maybe, like a white lie or whatnot, or telling your kid that Santa Claus is real, but we're getting into philosophical territory. There obviously needs to be some balance, some connection, or else we can end up feeling likewise hollow. Isolated. But, when all the world's a stage, we get to choose how we play our part. Those are just my thoughts though, and as always, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. ActDodge is one of those series that I am always thinking about. I was enjoying it when I made my last video, but being current with the manga, I downright love it now. The series has already delivered an incredible arc in Night on the Galactic Railroad and is in the middle of one that could be even better. The art has gone from something I personally found to be the series' only real issue, to me being fed my own words on a weekly basis with how phenomenal it has become. Seriously, Shiro Usazaki is only 21, but already shows a command of the pen that is jaw-dropping when it comes to knowing how to best accentuate the tone of a scene. Their use of blacks and whites are downright incredible. But enough gushing, really just go read it if you haven't. There will be a pre-order link to the first volume of the manga that's due out in June of next year down below. Just saying. But yeah, let me know any thoughts you have about the video, manga, or anything else that's bouncing around in your head. Thank you so much for watching though, and as always, an especially big thanks goes out to my awesome patrons, OverjoyedSoup, MVPino, James Morton, Marbled Ranger, Spudge, Beorn, and everyone else whose support helps make videos like these possible. Links to that Patreon if you'd like to join those awesome names, my shirts, and everything else are either down below or on the screen right now. Don't forget to leave a like and click that bell icon to keep up to date for whenever I release a video, or you could just follow me on Twitter. Stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.